If you ever spent a Friday night with your friends, sipping on Orange Julius, scouring the sale racks at the Limited, and sniffing scented body lotion at Bath & Body Works, you might be a Xennial. And we are too. Hi there, I'm Dani.
And I'm Katie.
And today on Generation In Between, we will be talking about a beloved epicenter of socialization and spending for all teens in the 80s and 90s, the mall. So this has actually been on our list for a while as an episode topic. But a big thanks to our devoted listener, Patrick, and OG Jennifer himself.
Yes.
For suggesting it to us again and kind of pushing us to get it to the top of our list. So shout out Patrick. And remember, if any of you have episode ideas, please send them our way. We even have a special little Google form you can fill out. So you can find that link in our show notes. But before we walk down the nostalgia lane, let's take a little second for some shout outs or circle backs. So Katie, do you have any?
Well, I just want to thank all the listeners, Jennifer's and otherwise, that did submit some mall memories, which we're going to get to later in the episode. And you can also check those out on our Facebook and Instagram pages. That was really fun. And also, I don't know, got me thinking for the episode too, like, oh yeah, like you just said Orange Julius, a few people mentioned that. And I'll get to those more specifically. So thank you guys for that. And also wanted to thank our first patron. We have our first monthly subscriber, and it's Candy. So thank you, Candy. So for $8 a month, she is a member of our club, and we are actually designing merch as we speak. Well, we're recording right now. But that will be for our patrons only, and look forward to that coming up. We're going to have a little special time where if you sign up, you get those things. Obviously, if you sign up before that, Candy, don't worry, girl.
Don't worry.
You're going to get a t-shirt. I mean, merch. Oops. Anyway, maybe a coffee mug, because I feel like coffee is very Xennial.
Ooh.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But we're also going to, we've been talking about some special episodes we're going to upload there too as well. So head on over to Patreon if you're interested. And if not, if you're just like over all the millions of subscriptions you have, or you don't have the money right now, that's fine. If you want to show us some support, a great way to do that is just to leave us a review wherever you listen to podcasts, a written review if it's possible. I know you can do that on Apple Podcasts, and share us with other people. Let them know that you're listening, and that helps us expand our reach and helps us grow the podcast so we can keep going with these fun stories like the mall.
Sharing is caring, just like the Care Bears, Kay. So
absolutely.
Yes. All right. So before we get into mall memories, mine, Katie's, and yours, I'm going to actually tell you the history of the mall as we know it.
Oh my gosh.
Super interesting. Okay. First of all, let me ask you, Katie, do you know anything about the hows and whys and whens of malls?
I mean, not really. Common sense would sort of tell me that different retailers were like, hey, we'll probably get more foot traffic if we're next to each other. But other than that, I don't know when they started.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, I don't know.
Good. I like that you're the one saying you don't know on this episode.
Know.
I know. I like it because it's usually me.
Yeah.
So here we go. So Victor Gruen. Wait, I might be saying this wrong.
Victor
Gruen.
I think that's Gruen.
Gruen?
Yeah.
Okay. So Mr. Victor was a Jewish European architect who immigrated to America from Vienna in 1938. He is credited with building America's first shopping mall in 1956, which was the Southdale Center in Edina, Minnesota.
Okay.
So Midwest had the very first mall.
I gotta say this is later than I would have expected.
Yeah?
Yeah, 1956.
Mm-hmm.
I would have thought maybe 20 to 30 years earlier.
Yeah, no, 1956. Okay. So here's some little background about him and his vision. So he began designing shopping spaces soon after his arrival here in the U.S. So he designed stores on Fifth Avenue in New York. But he developed like this signature style in his shop designs that had like this open arcade entrance. And I mean arcade in the shopping style of arcade, not like arcade like video games.
Got it. Because malls did have those too, which I think we'll get into.
We'll get there. We'll get there. So they had these open air arcade entrances flanked by these big plate glass displays with arrayment of goods. Okay. Mm-hmm. I made up that word. Arrayment is not a word. Arrayment. Anyways, so his designs grew super popular. And during the 1940s, he was already building like dozens of department stores across the country. But he had a vision for something different.
We're turning our pages, listeners.
I know we're turning our pages because I have lots of notes today.
Okay, there we go.
So here's the deal, though, about Victor. He really hated the noisy, crass commercialism of unregulated spaces. He did not like that.
What does that mean?
Well, I'll tell you.
Okay.
So in the 50s, the suburbs were being built, right? Stores were there was billboards everywhere. There was advertisements, and he hated that. So in the 50s, he gave a speech in which he denounced the banal landscapes of the post-war suburbs, calling them avenues of horror. Wait, I'm not done. Flanked by the greatest collection of vulgarity. Billboards, motels, gas stations, shanties, car lots, miscellaneous industrial equipment, hot dog stands, wayside stores, ever collected by mankind.
So first of all, this sounds like modern day Florida.
It does.
Period.
Dot.
But I love that, like, there's this big long list of things, and it says hot dog stand.
I know hot dog stands.
Like in the middle.
I love me a good street hot dog stand. I can't lie.
I get what he's saying, though.
Yeah. So that really was annoying, okay, to him. It bothered him. And so he got really ambitious with his designs. So he designed Southdale, but here's the interesting thing about the background, the why of why he built the mall. And I'll get into that in a second. So he designed the Southdale Mall as a 2-level structure linked by opposing escalators, okay, featuring a few dozen stores arrayed around a shared courtyard, okay. It had things like plants and sculptures, even bird cages he put in there. And it was protected from the weather by a roof. But that was like the epicenter of all the stores, was this nice shared communal space in the middle. Okay. A place for people to meet and greet and congregate and then, go shopping as well. So he modeled it after the European arcades, again, not video game arcades, everyone, that had flourished in Vienna and other cities in the early 19th century. Okay. So it was a big hit. People loved it. I mean, it was super popular. But he actually had bigger plans for his design than just a place to shop. So the mall itself was only a little part of Gruen's design because his real vision was for a dense, mixed-use, pedestrian-based urban center. Okay. And he wanted to have residential apartments. He wanted to have schools. He wanted to have medical centers, outdoor parks, and office buildings. So it was more of a community idea that he had instead of just a shopping area.
And it was like pedestrian based, right? So walkable. Everything
walkable. No cars.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I thought that was super interesting. So what our mall became is like the antithesis of what
he was actually
what
trying
he wanted
to
it
do.
to be.
Yeah.
So this was from an article I read. The mall courtyard and its pedestrian convenience were for Gruen a way to smuggle European metropolitan values into a barbaric American suburban wasteland.
Yikes.
Yeah.
But I mean, yes.
Which did not happen. And it actually is very sad.
Yeah.
Because his vision turned into capitalism.
So I was going to say, the part of his vision that really took hold in America was the capitalism part.
That's it.
Not the parks and the like walkable, like we're not driving, the community feel. The fact that you can buy all the stuff in one spot under one roof and like eat in the little food court or whatever. That was the part that Americans were like, yes, this is a hit. We need one in every city.
Correct. Yeah. So it's kind of sad. So Southdale was kind of supposed to be this antidote to the suburban sprawl, which he despised so much, but instead it became an amplifier. So all the things he didn't like just grew bigger.
Yeah. And on top of each other, like in one spot. Yeah.
Right. So parking lots surrounded malls instead of high density mixed use developments. Courtyards were replaced with food courts.
Yep.
What started as an idea rooted actually in socialism became a concept rooted in capitalism.
Wow.
There it is. First 10 minutes.
There it is. Easy. And we even like did shout outs and stuff to like, so of the actual content within the first few minutes. I mean, it makes me kind of sad.
Right? I know it was and listen to what he said in 1978. He's still alive. And he said, I would like to take this opportunity to disclaim paternity once and for all. I refuse to pay alimony for those bastard developments.
Wow.
Yeah, he was angry, y'all. He was not pleased with the American mall.
But, yeah. I mean, I get it.
I know.
But maybe when we get into memories and stuff like that, I will say, at least in the people I've spoken to and that sort of thing, the mall concept is a shared American experience.
Right. Well,
and it's not all commercial. Like, well, I'll get into that in some of my memories and even modern day stuff. But like, it's not all bad and just like, let's just go spend money on crap. That's part of it. And let's eat crap in the food court. And
let's talk crap on the bench.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. But like, it is a social gathering and was definitely when we were teens and young adults. And even now going with your family or whatever, Christmas shopping, whatever you think of. So it's not all bad. I mean, I can see how he's annoyed that it was his vision was kind of sort of just one little piece of it.
Yeah.
Which was probably the least piece that he was interested in turned into the thing that stuck.
Right.
I get that.
But I do think like his idea of a communal space still is valid.
Mm-hmm.
Because like you were saying, like, I mean, I remember as a teen, which we'll get into, like going to the mall, we just hung out there.
Yeah.
Sometimes we didn't spend a dime.
Right.
And there's another article I read about malls of the 80s and 90s. It said in the 80s, the mall became the new Main Street for communities. Mm-hmm. You know, back in the day, you had Main Street where everybody walked up and down where the stores were, but that's also where you saw your neighbors and you caught up on what was going on. And the mall kind of became that, especially for teenagers.
Yeah. Agree.
In that time frame. I mean, it was a place to hang out. It was a place to meet your friends. This was pre-cell phones, guys.
Right. And I mean, nowhere is completely safe, but relatively safe.
Yeah.
The difference, I think, you know, in 80s and 90s parenting culture too, yes, we probably had a lot more freedoms than our own kids have, but people were starting to really be aware of things like the stranger danger.
Yeah.
And kids were getting more restrictions on them, like how far they could go, stay within earshot, that sort of thing. So having the mall, which again, you all know, I listen to a lot of true crime. Trust me, there's lots of bad stuff that's happened at malls, but relatively safe as you're in one spot, you're inside, there's payphones at the ready, like that sort of thing. I think it kind of was a perfect recipe for what was happening culturally and with parenting and all of this, that this was a spot that kids wanted to go to and that parents were kind of okay with them going to.
Well, I mean, like also
there.
80s and 90s parenting, like we've talked about before, was like, I'll drop you off here and pick you up here at a certain time. And that's it.
You didn't really have another option.
I know. That was it. Yeah, that was like, there was no calling. You're just there.
It was just like, be at JC Penney at 4 o'clock.
Yeah, 4 o'clock, whatever.
4 o'clock, 9 o'clock. Wow.
Yeah. Well, that's when our mall closed. Well, you know, I mean, I was the second born, so like they were tired.
They were over it. That'd be like my daughter Tegan. we have like all these rules for teens. By the time she's a teenager, we'll just be like, where? I mean, that happens now. We're like, where is she? She's next door to the neighbor. She's just like took herself next door to play. It's like, well, wow, we're really doing a good job.
You are.
This one.
You are doing a good job. She's great. Okay, so here's some more facts, and I think I have a little more facts, and then I have like what has happened to shopping malls. Mm-hmm. I think I'll do all of that, and then we can spend the rest of the episode talking about memories. Sound
Perfect.
good? Okay.
Yeah, that sounds good.
So here's some numbers for you. Katie loves numbers. So 1,500 malls were built across the country between 1956 and 2005, said one source that I read. Mm-hmm. But then actually multiple others said in the 80s, there were 2,500 malls in the country.
I would think that would be closer.
I think so too. So I'm wondering if it was just a misprint.
Yeah.
The other one.
Maybe they
because I read that in multiple places.
Okay.
So that's just kind of like a numbers game for you there. So what has happened to malls? Katie was at the mall the other day.
I was.
And she said it still happened. Okay.
Yes. Our mall, and we live in the Melbourne, Florida area.
Yes.
And so I'm talking about Melbourne Square Mall, is always hopping. I mean, it is wild. I've gone multiple times of day. Like I've gone by myself at like noon on a Wednesday and it is busy.
That's crazy.
The food court's buzzing. Like, and then of course, if you go at like Christmas time or something, and we went over spring break. And so it was packed with like parents and teens and all kinds of stuff. But, you know, you hear malls are dying, which I think we're going to talk a bit about. And I'm always in there. I'm like, not this one.
Yeah.
This place is always packed.
Right.
Packed.
Well, the thing is, the decline of shopping malls, which you can probably guess what happened, it began in the mid-2000s.
Yep.
So the Great Recession, which was in December 07 to June 09, which is really long.
Really long.
That was the first thing that affected shopping. But then, of course, the rise of online shopping definitely contributed to the decline of malls and the shutdown of malls. Between 2010 and 2013, mall visits during the holiday season went down 50%.
Ooh, yikes.
Yeah, that's a big drop. And also, this was an interesting fact I found. There is a decline in malls because of what is called market correction. Do you know what that means?
No,
Me
I don't.
either. Basically, it's because we are over retailed.
Okay.
So because we have so much, it's starting to decline. So listen to this number, 26 square feet. There is 26 square feet of retail space per person in the US.
What?
Compared to 2.5 in Europe. You see what I have in big capital letters there? Capitalism.
It says capitalism.
It does.
Bold and all.
Bold.
So, okay. So just to kind of loop on this market correction thing. So what you're saying is during the boom, we overbuilt
Correct.
our retail space, and the mall contributed to that. I'm sure there were other spaces too, to the point that there were 26 square feet of retail space per person in the U.S. And now that a lot of people do things online, the market is sort of correcting itself. Okay.
Yeah.
I gotcha. So it's kind of bound to happen one way or another.
It kind of was. Recession or not, online shopping or not.
Right.
So Forbes magazine states that in the 80s, there were 2,500 malls, like I just said, functioning malls. Now there's only 700.
Whoa.
Functioning.
Functioning. Okay.
A lot of malls are like abandoned. And oh my gosh, I got into this rabbit hole. I had to jump out quickly. There's all these videos on YouTube of people that go into like abandoned shopping malls and like look around. It's like a horror movie because so much has like been untouched or something.
Right.
It's like, no.
And they're so big.
So big.
And vast. And when you remember them, or in the case of our mall, that's very thriving and busy, when you remember them that way and you see it that way, that's really, really scary.
I know.
Yeah. Ooh. Little side note, but one of the kind of spooky podcasts I listened to, they were talking about abandoned theme parks and how sometimes people break into those. And that there's one, of course I don't remember it now. If I find the episode, I'll link it in the notes. But essentially, it's still playing like the music through the speakers. And it's like a water park. And it's like abandoned and stuff is broken. But you hear this just like very like generic music piping through the speakers. Can you imagine?
No.
So spooky.
Nope.
So I kind of think of that when I'm thinking of the malls. Yeah. So this is just occurring to me, this market correction. So is our mall busy because there's less malls?
I don't know. That's a good thing to think about. Well, and because then my final thought on all these numbers is, like you were saying, plenty of people still really enjoy mall shopping. Plus, the love for like retro 80s, 90s culture is strong these days.
Yes.
Like it is strong, right? Hello, our podcast.
Yes. Here we are.
So who knows? I mean, maybe the malls will make a comeback.
My kids love going to the mall because all they've ever known is online shopping, really.
Mm-hmm.
And so like when we go and they actually try stuff on or even Christmas shopping, my kids don't like to shop online for something for their friend or for a sibling if we do like a gift exchange because there's so many of them. We just draw names. But they don't want to just look on Amazon.
Right.
They want to say, when can we go to the mall?
Yeah.
When can I pick this out for him or her and whatever for my teacher? They really enjoy it.
Yeah.
Because it's not something they've done a lot of.
Right.
Yeah.
So I don't know. So question mark on malls where they will be. Question mark on the future. But okay, so that's just information. So now we're going to talk about fun stuff.
Okay.
So I'll share my memories and then you can share yours and listeners. So
Sounds
excited
good.
to hear what listeners have. Yes. I have a feeling we will probably have lots of similarities in our mall memories. For those of you who did not grow up in the 80s and 90s and missed out on mall culture, it really was just as fun as you think.
It really was.
It really was. I mean, I can't lie.
Nothing bad to say about it.
It was a good time. I don't have any bad mall memories.
Wow. Yeah, I don't think I do either.
Well, I mean, like, I remember trying on clothes that didn't fit and stupid stuff like that, or like friend drama. But the mall was like a place. So the mall I went to growing up was North Shore Square Mall. It was in Slidell, Louisiana. That is where I grew up. Sadly, it is no more. I think my parents were just here for Easter weekend, and I was like, is that mall still open? And they were like, well, there's like 2 stores. And I don't think the inside of the mall is open. I think it's just like...
Right. Like the kind of like the JC Penney's and this, maybe Sears, maybe Macy's if it's a big enough.
So that's sad.
Place.
That's sad times. When I was a preteen and then like a teen in the early 90s before I could drive, this is what would happen. Me and my friends, we would get dropped off at the mall on like a Friday night, Saturday night at like 7:00. Maybe earlier than that. I don't know. That seems a little late. We'd meet our friends. We'd walk around. We'd spend our allowance. We'd buy whatever junk food in the food court, right? And we'd loiter around before we called our parents on the payphone to pick us up. They closed at 9. So our mall closed at 9. And I can remember there was like, you know, a bunch of different entrances, but like the main entrance was by the food court. And that's where there was this line of payphones. And I swear to you, at 9:00, all the teenagers would be out there waiting for their parents to pick them up. Or they opened a movie theater. So we had 2 movie theaters in my town. We had what we ended up calling the old movies and the mall movies. The mall movies was the new movie theater. So everyone wanted to go there. And it was right across the street from the mall. Well, you'd walk through the parking lot and it was like at the back of the parking lot. So when we were older teens, we'd go to the mall and then go to the late movie at 9:00.
Okay.
If we had nice parents that were letting us stay
to do the movie
because they had to come pick us up, right? So
right, there's that.
Or until we could drive. Once we could drive, then but still you have a curfew. And I can remember I had a later curfew than a lot of my friends just because I was the youngest. So my mom was like, whatever. And I remember I had some friends who would have to like leave in the middle of a movie because they had to be home.
That was me.
That was Katie.
That was me.
Oh.
My dad would be like, even when I was driving, he'd be like, well, I'm going to bed at 10:30 and I won't go to bed till you're home.
See,
so
I'm
you're
like,
home
I'm
at
like
10:30.
that. Yeah, I'm like that with Kaden. Are you like that with your kids or no?
One of us is. Usually Brant stays up because I'm not really a late night person.
Oh, I hate late nights. Me and Troy, neither one of us are late night people. But like, I can't go to bed till everybody's back. Like, I have to know everybody's okay. And then I'll go to bed.
Normally, us two, although now that my son, he's your son's age too, is 17, there was like one time recently where we kind of like dozed off and we woke up in the morning and I was like, is he back? And I was like, I don't know. And so we like come out and he had ridden with a friend. So all the cars were here. So I was like, oh, I don't want to wake him up because it was early. It was like 5 a.m. and his door's loud. And so we figured it out because we went in the bathroom and could see his work clothes.
Okay.
And must have showered or something. So we're like, his work clothes are here. He's here. And we were like, wow, good job. High-fiving,
nice
detectives. But most of the time, yeah, I mean, I get that. Like now that I'm a parent, I totally get that. Like, and I think I even would say to my dad, well, I can wake you up when I get back.
I used to do that with my mom.
Can you imagine?
She would fall asleep because, I mean, I had a later curfew than a lot of my friends. So I didn't have to be home, especially once I was like 17,
right.
16, 17. I didn't have to be home till like 11:30, midnight. And she was a nurse. Like she was an ER nurse. So she was tired. So I remember going in her room and she would fall asleep reading. And so like she'd be sitting up and her light would be on and her mouth would be all open and she's a deep sleeper and I'd be like, Mom. Right. And sometimes she would only half wake up. And then in the morning she would get mad and be like, you didn't come tell me. And so what I started doing was I would move her book and put it on the thing and take her glasses and turn her light off. So that way, if she woke up in the morning
and it was all orderly
and it was all done, she knew that I had been home.
Yeah. So, like that's like the sign, like we need to, because we'd be dozing off for sure. And my son is 17. I mean, I think there's a big difference between, I mean, still, I would rather have everybody in and the doors all bolted and all that. But I think there's a difference between a 14 or 15-year-old and a 17-year-old out and about.
Depends on the kid.
Depends on the kid. That's true. That's a good point. That's a good point. Yes.
Oh gosh, doesn't it? Okay, so here's some stores I remember. Tell me if you had any of these.
Okay.
I'm going to go through all my memories and then we're going to hear all of Katie's too. So our music store was called Camelot Music. Okay. I don't know if that might have been a local thing. We had a store that sold accessories called Afterthoughts. This is before Claire's came around and I meant to research this before our episode today and I forgot. But I remember once Claire's came around, Afterthoughts was no more. So I don't know if they got bought out or what. Our toy store was called KB Toys.
We had that.
Yes. Our bookstore was B. Dalton Books. Apparently that was a big mall bookstore because when I looked up like old mall pictures, it was there a lot.
Okay.
We had a Mervyn's. Did you have a Mervyn's?
I don't think so.
I think that may have been like a Southern department store.
Okay.
We had a Sears, a Dillard's. Gadzooks was like my favorite store.
We had that.
We had Express. These are all just stores I remember. Gap, Limited, Learners. Okay. Rave. Did you have a Rave?
It sounds really familiar.
It's like fast fashion.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes.
We did have one.
High schooler's dream. You can buy a shirt for like $5. Oh my gosh. And then we had like random kiosks, like throughout the mall. Do you remember when hemp clothing was like big?
Yes.
Oh my gosh. I was trying to remember the name of all this brands.
I don't remember either.
Okay. Well, and then we had, do you remember where you could get rice jewelry where they would write on a grain of rice?
Yeah. What? Yes. I can't, just explaining that is so ridiculous.
I know.
And it was a
trend.
They
would use this crazy magnifying glass. Okay. I remember watching people do this and it was so fascinating. And they would literally take a grain of rice and write whatever you wanted to on it. I mean, we would usually do our name and then they'd put it in this vial.
Oh my God.
You remember this?
I do remember this.
And you could get like beads and stuff or whatever, but everybody wore these. How stupid. It's so dumb.
Why did everyone like that so much?
I don't know, but we loved that mess. In our food court, okay, we had a Chick-fil-A, which was the only place. We didn't have a freestanding Chick-fil-A anywhere. So that's the only place you could get Chick-fil-A was at the mall. We had a Sbarro pizza. Did you have one of those?
We had a pizza place, but I don't think it was a Sbarro.
It wasn't Sbarro. We had some Chinese place, a Mexican place, and Mrs. Fields cookies.
Yes, and the Melbourne Mall still has that. Except
do?
it's like a freestanding
oh my gosh
thing in the middle by the food court.
I love some Mrs. Fields cookies.
Yes.
So another thing I remembered was right next to our food court, we had an arcade and it was called Jolly Time. And I'm pretty sure we talked about that on an episode, didn't we?
It sounds familiar. Yeah.
It was called Jolly Time. And you had to use actual quarters. Now, Katie and I was with your husband and another friend of ours. We took three of our kids to the bowling alley. And they have an arcade there and it's lame. You can't even use quarters. You have to get these reusable cards.
Yeah. You have to load up the cards and swipe them.
It's so stupid. And the prizes are in like a vending machine.
Yeah. There's not even a person to give your tickets to.
Lame. So my arcade, you had actual quarters and Some were just like pay to play, like Pac-Man or air hockey or whatever. But then we had some where you could win tickets, like skee ball, stuff like that. We didn't have any of those lame games they have now where you just play for like more tickets or whatever.
Right,
you know what I'm talking about?
right. Where you just like spin the wheel and it like says 15 tickets
so
or
stupid.
Something like that.
We didn't have those. Like you had to actually work for the tickets.
Yeah.
And then, you know, they had like little cheap prizes like at Chuck E. Cheese or whatever. But you know what else I remember? Do you remember photo booths in the mall?
Yes. I just remembered.
Right?
After looking at this. Yes.
So photo booths in the mall, like you would, like if you've watched any old movies, like they have the little montage where the people go in the photo booth. Like I have so many of those. I've got to look through my stuff this weekend and see if I can find it. So many of those strips, it had 4 pictures on the strip. So many of me and my friends, every time we go to the mall, we would take those pictures.
Yeah.
Because you know what? I think part of the fun was we didn't have digital cameras.
Right.
And Polaroid cameras were a thing, but not like they were expensive.
You didn't usually take it with you.
No.
Yeah. And the film was expensive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we didn't have instant gratification with pictures. So photo booths were like super fun because you got to see your pictures right away.
Take them with you.
Yes. It was a lot of fun. Do they still have those?
I was going to say there are photo booths. Like I know Chuck E. Cheese, for example, has one you can do. I'm trying to think if our mall has one. I'm sure they do.
But I feel like it's probably not as fun because you can just take a picture on your phone.
It's not like, I will say my kids like it. They think it's kind of funny because you can make a face and then you have to wait to kind of look at it. So there's still a little bit of a difference from just doing it on your phone, but it's not the same as let's commemorate going to the mall on this Friday night with these pictures. It's not like that. It's more like, oh, this looks fun. Like, how do we do it? You know?
Yeah. Okay. You know what else I remembered? Do you remember when malls, and maybe they still do, they used to have like events, right?
Yep.
So like in the 80s, there were mall concerts. None of the good big mall concerts came to my mall. They all went to the New Orleans malls.
Right.
Because I was like 30 minutes away from like the big shopping malls. There were definitely ones there. I remember that happened. And then I remember myself doing several spelling bees in the middle of my mall. I remember this. Never won, everybody. I never won.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so spelling bees. And then I also always remember seeing like, they must have done these frequently, like amateur modeling stuff. Like remember Barbizon and like,
oh yes.
I don't remember the other one's name, but I remember seeing those constantly.
I have a video to show you after this episode, but not from that time. Tegan did a mall runway show when she was 4. This is my daughter who's 9 now. She looks exactly the same, but she's short.
Oh my God, so cute.
And it was
in a mall?
I think it was for Dillard's or something. Is that our mall?
I love it.
Right outside Dillard's.
The Melbourne Mall?
Uh-huh. And God, it was a runway, and they were like, it was mostly like adults and teens, and then it was like her. And it's very, very cute. But like everyone's like sitting, you know, like you would like at Fashion Week in New York, like people are sitting along the runway and the people are walking down. I'll show you the video. But I remember even then being like, this is a blast from the past.
Right?
Like, what's happening? There's a runway show at the mall and people are actually here and
I know.
like watching it. What's going on?
And then there was also like, I was writing down when I was trying to remember, they used to have like holiday events in the middle of the mall too, like recitals and like variety shows, like in the mall. So then that made me think of, well, that was like a main street. That was like
exactly
a communal space.
And if you think about it, you know, for how commercial it is, or even generic or you know, kind of sterile looking, some of them can be. It was inside. And at least where I'm from, and it was a little colder in Louisiana, but I'm from the Midwest.
Psh, girl.
And you couldn't do stuff outside for half the year. So if you could do your spelling bee or your like event at the mall, or just do some sort of event that people wanted to come to.
Yeah.
You could do it there and wouldn't get snowed out. Like you could do it.
Well, we had the opposite problem in Louisiana. It was really hot all the time and raining.
Yes.
So if you could not be sweating your face off, then that was great. There's AC.
Exactly. And it's like somewhat controlled, right? Whereas,
and there's bathrooms.
Yep. There's food. It's kind of like the equivalent now when you go to an event, they're like, oh, there'll be food trucks.
Yes.
Right? Like they don't cater it or anything. They're just like, you can like stand in line at a food truck. Yes. It's kind of like that, but it was in the mall.
Totally like that. And the last thing that I remember, and then Katie gets the floor for all her memories and all our listener memories, and I cannot wait. I feel like in the 90s, like when my friends and I all started getting jobs, that all my friends either work at some point, because, you know, you have multiple jobs when you're a teenager.
Yes.
At some point, either worked at the mall, the movies, or a Blockbuster. Like, I swear. I just think all my friends, except me, I did not, because I had the hookup because my to-be stepdad, when I started working, who obviously became my stepdad and has been my stepdad since, but he owned his own pharmacy and I worked there.
Oh.
It was like the best job because we were open 9 to 6.
Yeah.
Closed on Sundays, 9 to 2 on Saturday. It was the best job. And my friends were so jealous.
Because they had to work at the movies till 12 or 1 a.m. or whatever. Oh my gosh, that's so great.
But they got all the new release rentals. You worked at a Blockbuster, didn't you?
I did. Not as a teen. It was like right after I graduated from college. So it was actually when it was sort of starting to be on its way out, because this would have been 2005-ish. And I was just newly out of college, and I had a regular full-time job, but you know, me, one job's not enough, not even back then. And it was a new town and stuff, and I didn't really like know anybody. So I went on down and got a job at the Blockbuster. I love that. And I actually really liked it. Yeah. It was pretty easy.
Way worse jobs to have in retail, for real.
Yeah. Like it wasn't, because I've also worked in, so I can talk about that with my mall memories. So my mall memories are a little bit interesting.
Okay, I'm ready. I can't wait.
I grew up in a town that had at the time, one of the only outlet malls in the Chicagoland area.
Oh.
We were on the Indiana side.
Okay.
So literally people would come from Chicago and everywhere in Michigan and all over the place because we had this sprawling outdoor outlet mall. In addition to that, we had a traditional mall, which was like downtown. People did not come from near and far for that. So let me start with that. So I remember kind of like you being able to go with my friends, probably like middle school age. And we had a JC Penney, a Sears. What was the name of the CD store? I should have written this down. Is it FYE? Yeah, that's what we had. That's what we had. We had Claire's. I don't remember Afterthoughts, but maybe I'm just not remembering, and Claire's came later.
We eventually had a Claire's. That's why I'm wondering if it just was like a local, I don't know what it was, but yes.
And we had, there was a department store that was very focused on the Midwest called Carson Pirie Scott. I think they've all been bought out by Macy's now, because there was a Carson Pirie Scott in downtown Chicago forever that's Macy's now. So Carson Pirie Scott was a big one, and then the Sears. So those were like the three: JCPenney, Carson Pirie Scott, and Sears. Those were like the three like anchor stores. For some reason, we had a bunch of shoe stores.
Oh yeah, we did too.
3 or 4 or 5, including a Payless shoe store, which was in there. We didn't have a food court.
Oh, weird.
But we had food places throughout.
Oh, like kiosk food places?
Yeah, like even some of them had little storefronts. They just weren't collected in one food court spot.
Got it.
So we had an Auntie Anne's.
Oh, yum.
Which I still have to get when I go to our mall, which has an Auntie Anne's. I have to get.
I've only been to that mall one time since we moved here.
It's not bad.
I know. I've only been one time.
Like, I actually enjoy going. And the food court's great because there's maybe 8 different places to eat. And we all just like grab our stuff and like gather.
Why I love food courts. It's like, go get what you want and we'll meet back.
Totally.
I love that.
And it's not huge, our mall here. So you can like walk it in a couple hours if you're stopping a bunch of times. So those are the main ones I remember. It wasn't a huge mall because I was in not a small city, but like an Indiana town. Yeah. And then we also had the outlet mall that had all the things. So we would go to the mall, same thing, get picked up, get dropped off and then picked up. We had a movie theater in the same parking lot, but it was freestanding.
Yeah, that's like ours, yeah.
And then there was another one across the street.
Nice.
So one was a little older than the other, but...
So you had an old and a new as well.
Exactly. And then since I've moved away, they've built like a big AMC a little further down. Interestingly enough, not really by the mall, but by Walmart. of all things.
Who knows?
But there was a lot of land probably, and they built it brand new, like from the ground up. So I'm sure that's why. But yeah, we would go. I remember going with my mom a decent amount, like anytime I needed, because like I was a performer, so I would have piano recitals and vocal recitals. We would go to the mall and like find what I needed from JC Penney or Carson Pirie Scott. I remember Christmas shopping there. And yeah, pretty much all good memories from there too. Buying music from there when I was
oh my gosh, remember going and listening to the Headphones?
Yes.
And you could, I'm sure they don't do that anymore, do they?
I don't know. I've seen something like that at like a Barnes and Noble.
Okay.
Relatively recently, but it may have been pre-COVID when I saw that.
I was going to say,
so I bet they don't anymore.
That.
It's probably gone forever.
Yeah.
And there was a bookstore too, but it was like locally owned.
Oh, like a local one.
Yeah, and then we had a Hallmark. Did you have a Hallmark?
We did have a Hallmark.
Like a Hallmark Gold Crown, whatever. I loved that store too. I remember going in. I can like still remember the smell of that store.
I know. I always thought it was so fancy.
Yes. It'd be like, oh, this is where all like the fancy stuff. Like for Mother's Day. Yes. Like the precious moments were in there. And like, oh my gosh, I loved that store. I think I got my mom something for like every birthday and Christmas forever from that store.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was kind of ours. But then the outlet mall. So when I started working, I didn't work at the regular mall. I ended up working at the outlet mall retail, and I worked at a Van Heusen,
nice,
and at Gantz.
Okay,
and then I worked at I think it's just called That's Entertainment.
Yep,
I worked at one of those over a Christmas holiday once, and so funny story about that. I had never seen the movie White Christmas, which is crazy because I'm like a huge musical person, and I was then. And I worked at That's Entertainment at the outlet mall, not the regular mall, when I came back from college, maybe my freshman or sophomore year, over Christmas. Like they hired me for Thanksgiving. And then when I came back for Christmas, I worked for a few weeks. And they would play that movie all the time in the store. And it's now my favorite Christmas movie.
Even with the problematic stuff in it?
It's pretty problematic. But yes, even then.
She's like, even then.
Even then. And I just was like, why have I never seen this before? This is the best movie I've ever seen. Meanwhile, I should be like helping customers and I'm like watching like
is
Vera Allen's tap dance.
With the sister song?
Yes.
Okay.
My dream is for any pair of my girls to sing that song just randomly. My birthday is coming up, so there we go. For something. But yes, so I did a lot as far as like working. I worked at the outlet mall, and then I didn't work at a Blockbuster until I was out of college and in a different city. But yeah, so I don't know if that have more than beyond what you have. The photo booths definitely came back to mind when you said that. The outdoor outlet mall didn't have quite as much a feel of gathering.
Yeah, because it's spread out.
And it was just like lines of stores, basically. Yeah. That was it. And there were restaurants here and there. Right. And that place, so then our mall was called the Marquette Mall, the regular mall. And it's, same thing. It's done. I think you can still go into JC Penney. I think Carson Pirie Scott is either a Macy's or just gone. I think Sears. I think you can go into like those. And for the longest time, there was, of all things, just a Chinese buffet. This gigantic Chinese buffet in the mall. That might still be there. I have no idea. And I think, some of the ones that had outward facing doors, I think one's like a Planet Fitness now. They've just sort of transition to other things, but I would imagine there's just a lot of dead space in the middle of like nothing. Whereas the outlet mall is still thriving, even with outlet malls everywhere. Like it's busy all the time, people coming from everywhere. We even go, like when we go visit my parents, I don't say, let's go to the mall. I'm like, let's go to the outlet mall. We go to the Nike outlet or wherever else we want to go. So, but I liked going to the mall. It was fun.
Yeah.
And I like going to this mall. Like last week, it was spring break here for our kids. And I don't know how, but I ended up having like one of the busiest weeks of like years for me. I had work and then I had a bunch of voice lessons, which I'm not complaining. I love it, but I had like extra ones than normal.
Because they were off school.
That's exactly it. And I thought it'd be opposite because people would be like, oh, we're traveling. But people were like, oh, we're here. We need 2 extra lessons. And so it was great. But I was like, oh, and then I had rehearsals in the evenings. So by about Thursday night, I was feeling really bad because we didn't go anywhere for spring break. I wasn't spending any time with the kids. Like Dani mentioned, my husband took one of the girls bowling. He doesn't mind. Like he likes doing that stuff. Dad should get to do that stuff. But I was just feeling like I've done nothing with my kids. So I was just like, who wants to go to the mall? And if you want to go, come along. We're going to go now. And my youngest kind of didn't want to go. She had a few sleepovers and, you know, she just kind of gets in creative mode. And she was in creative mode. She's like, I'm just going to stay here, Mom. So she stayed with my husband. My son thought he was going to go and then was like, didn't go. So it ended up being me and my 3 other girls. And we just had the best time. Like, ate in the food court, got some things they needed. There's a store called Candy Galore.
Yes.
Right next to Dick's Sporting Goods.
Yes.
Which is very funny. It's like, get your like exercise equipment and then your big old bag of candy that they'll weigh. We went to, I was like, because I guess mom guilt, I was like, let's get candy. Yeah. Like, you know, so we're all walking out with these like giant, right before Easter weekend too. I'm like, just when we need candy, right before we get a bunch of candy. But we had like the best time. So, I mean, my memories of the mall back then and now are positive, but let's see what we heard from.
Yes, I can't wait.
Listeners. Okay. So starting on Facebook, Jen.
Yes.
A different Jen, who I don't think we've shouted out before. Jen, you know who you are. She wrote, and I'm just going to quote what she wrote on Facebook for her mall memories, Xennial Mall memories, getting Orange Julius.
See.
Shopping at 579.
579.
We had one of those.
9.
Yeah. So the concept was everything was $5, $7, or $9.
Yeah.
And it was fast fashion. It was like tube tops, cut off shorts, PJ bottoms, whatever. She said shopping at the Gap.
Yep.
The Limited. And she even worked at Victoria's Secret on college break.
Boop, boop.
There it is. Ours didn't have a Victoria's Secret.
Ours did, but it wasn't until later.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think it came in there when I was in high school.
Okay. I don't think ours ever did. Now our mall here does. And it has a pink. Yeah. And it's
I am
busy.
Anti-Victoria's Secret.
Yeah.
So I do not shop
You don't
there.
like it? There you go. No. Well, don't worry, Jen, just did it on college break. You won't have to worry about hurting her feelings.
No.
She doesn't work there now. I know for a fact that she's a veterinarian. So.
Oh.
All right. So Jen, who's a vet, go find her. Okay. Another Jennifer who's named Patrick said.
Yeah, who's named Patrick.
And I shall quote, "Hi, y'all. I was a wee lad in the 90s.
Yes, he was.
He was. We love you. But I had a few distinct memories of the mall. That's good. My favorite food court joint was a place called Big Loafer."
Yes.
What?
What in the world is that?
They make
like
these
sandwiches?
I guess so.
Okay.
They make these fresh bread roll things with ham, Swiss, banana peppers. They were so good.
Delicious.
That sounds amazing. Let's go to Big Loafer after this. Okay. It was super dated when he went, which makes sense because it's actually a day one relic that opened up with the mall in 1981.
Oh.
So when he was going in the 90s,
yeah,
it had been open at least a decade plus. Next up, he liked going to Suncoast.
Oh,
he loved this
Suncoast.
place. Yep.
It was movies,
music and media.
Yeah.
But then it got replaced by FYE.
FYE, yeah.
And it lost all its charm for some reason.
I think we had a Suncoast too later years.
Mm-hmm.
I think we did, yeah.
Yeah. Then there's Hot Topic.
Oh, yes.
I'm sure all the evil-looking storefronts were cool to the teenager, young adult demographic. But as a kid, the store 100% terrified me.
Shut up. Oh, that's great.
Imagine being afraid of Hot Topic.
You're afraid of Hot Topic. Patrick. And he's a big horror person, too.
Okay. So maybe that's where it stemmed from.
That's hilarious.
And then he said, in terms of all the shenanigans that me and my pals did, usual teenager stuff, loitering, being obnoxiously annoying to other mall patrons who were there to actually buy something as opposed to them who were just hanging out. I do remember teenage years seeing signs that were like, loitering. Like, I feel like there was always a battle to like not have, it's one of those things, right? Like you don't want the teens just loitering around, but also they probably, some of them buy stuff, but maybe not enough to be worth the aggravation. I have no idea.
I do remember fights at the mall.
I don't remember that, but I bet it did happen.
I mean, I wasn't in them, but I remember fights happening at the mall.
It happened at my school a lot. So I'm sure it was happening at my mall too. Okay. So then on Instagram, oh my gosh, this is the best.
Oh gosh.
You are not ready for this.
I'm not.
This is from Tanya.
Okay.
When I said, like, what mall memories do you have, Tanya? She said, You mean like the weekend I hung out with the Backstreet Boys at Florida Mall when they were shopping for outfits for a music video and handing out singles?
What?
So I kind of know the longer story of that, but in a nutshell, something about a friend of hers was in one of their music videos, so they actually were with them shopping and hanging out with them.
That is crazy.
I have no idea if any videos, or no videos probably exist. If any photos exist, probably not.
Probably not.
Probably not cool to be invited to be with them and be like, by the way, and like snapping pictures.
But we didn't have cameras with us all the time.
Right.
You only brought a camera.
You literally would have had to take a camera.
Yeah. Like you only brought a camera with you for like special events.
Right.
So you missed a lot of cool pictures.
Exactly. So that was Florida Mall. Florida Mall is always really busy too. Have you been there? I know you haven't lived here that long. Florida Mall, right? So it's kind of past the airport, like right before you get into Orlando proper. And they have American Girl store, Crayola Experience.
Oh, I've seen it, but I haven't been there.
It's not bad either. It's very overwhelming.
Yeah.
And they have a lot of these, which my mall never did, these like luxury stores.
Oh,
They have an Apple store in there. They have a Tesla storefront inside the mall.
Okay.
Like my kids are like, how do they get those cars in here? I'm like, I don't know. Elon Musk,
Magic.
I'm not sure. Okay, so Tanya also said kind of what you were saying. I know it's a big deal to get dropped off at the mall. We do collect payphone calls to get picked up.
See? Pick me up, I'm done.
Hers was collect call from JC Penney 5 pickup.
See? I love that, Tanya. Me too, girl. Me too.
And then she said being a scandalous teen, going into Spencer's adult back section.
Yes, the back dark section of Spencer.
Spending an hour at a music store looking through cassette tapes, then not buying anything. Yeah.
Yeah. Always.
Adds up. And then she said, and I love this one because I feel like I did similar things to this. I used to go to the mall with my family and one friend for my birthday. I would pick out a nice outfit, usually a pair of ankle zip Guess jeans. And then they'd go to Olive Garden for dinner.
Yes.
I love that. That is just like perfect birthday that involves your local mall and fashion and delicious food and family. I love it. And then Candy, when I asked her, she said they actually had do you remember this? Delia's?
Oh my God. I only got the catalog for Delia's and I loved it.
Me too. And it was always expensive.
So expensive.
Oh my gosh, it was so expensive. And that's what she said, that she did get the magazine, but her local mall actually had a store.
So cool.
But she never got anything from it because it was so expensive. But she liked going in there. So those were our listener mall
Oh my gosh, that's so fun.
There's some really good ones. And I'm sure as you all are listening, maybe something popped in your head or a long forgotten store, or maybe you have some sort of mall ghost story.
Yes. Oh, I don't want to know.
It's not too late. Oh, I do.
Tell them the Katie, not me.
Yes.
At Katie.
At Katie, the mall ghost who saved me from a predator. And I will read that so fast. You have no idea. I'll drop everything to read it. Even if your story is not about that, use that subject line to get my attention. Oh, that was fun.
That was a fun look back.
I actually learned so much about them all. I guess I just always assumed they were just like kind of thrown together by different people in different places, but it sounds like one person had this general idea that everybody kind of built on. And when you said the thing about the 2 escalators.
Yeah.
So many malls look like that. And I was even thinking about like Mean Girls. That's how their mall looks.
Think of all the 80s movies. They all have that.
They do. The 2 escalators on like opposite sides of the mall.
Because you'd be hollering to somebody on the other one. And our mall was just one story.
Ours too.
Yeah.
Inside the stores though, JC Penney had 2 stories and an escalator.
No, ours was all one story.
Okay.
But now I'm like thinking about the 80s movies with mall scenes.
Yes.
But all right, well, that was fun. Thank you all so much for joining us today on our look back on malls. Thank you for listening to Generation In Between, a Xennial podcast. If you liked what you heard, as always, please share us with your friends of all generations and leave us that review wherever you listen. You can also find us on Patreon and join Candy, right? Isn't she our lone
she's
patron?
lonely over there.
Yeah, join Candy. Become a monthly supporter. And like Katie said, we are working on bonus episodes and other perks, so stay tuned. All our info is linked in our show notes. So until next time, don't spend all your allowance in one store and always make sure you have a quarter to call home.
Unless you say, bye, I'm at JC Penney, pick me up.
Or that.
quarter or a really fast voice to talk collect.
Yes. Till next time. Bye.
Bye, guys.